Hey everyone, it's Rybe. In this guide, I'm going to be talking with Ashwin about the post-atomic slash modern era units. We're going to be talking about which ones are really good, which ones are pretty bad. We're going to talk about the utility of each unit, what you need to be thinking about as you're using them, and the promotions you want to be taking. We're going to be demonstrating exactly how important thinking about what tiles you're standing on, what tiles you have prepared with forts, etc., is to how your game is going to go. So without further ado, whoops, lol. Okay, without further ado, let me just jump right in. All right, Ashwin. Where do you want to start? What do you want to start with?
I think the most important unit to start with is the land ship. You can't talk about modern war without land ships.
Yep. Okay, so what about a land ship do you want to like? What? There's a lot to talk about for sure. So, um, I think the main thing we need to start with is the unit obviously upgrades from Cav. It comes at combustion. Oftentimes you're going to be what turn would you say is like if your neighbor you have a feeling he's going land ship, what turn do you think he's going to get there?
Um, in a normal NQ lobby, I think average skill players often get there around 120.
Yep.
115 I would say is fast, and then the truly like demonic land ship timings come sub 110.
Yeah. But honest like you kind of said, I think in like a normal game, I don't think that's even conceivable. Most of the time, like there's only a handful of players that can even pull that off, so it's not even worth thinking about. So I 100% agree with you. I think 120 is kind of like in my internal clock. That's when I have to be like, okay, land ships are coming, unless this player's having an exceptionally good game, in which case it'll probably be around like 115 or one whatever, right? So, okay, let's say we have our land ships 115. What's the number one most important thing that this unit gives?
Um, I think you're looking for something else, but I actually think it's the plus 50%
Oh, that's
unit
no,
class.
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. Yeah.
yeah,
So a land ship looks like a 60 strength unit. If you look at it in the Civipedia, it says 60 strength. But it's actually secretly a 90 strength unit. So it slams everything in that era for really, really significant advantage.
Honestly,
Uh,
the only thing that this kind of avoids is bombers and battleship, right? Like it's kind of it.
yeah. So let's talk about the unit class bonus. So the
Yeah.
unit class bonus is only a bonus versus land units. So it works on things like other land ships. It works on infantry. It works on anti-tank rifles. It even works on helicopter units. The things that it doesn't work on are bombers and boats.
Yep.
So to every single unit that we have on the screen right now, a land ship looks like a 90 strength unit.
Yeah. And then couple that with the fact that it's a cav, so it can cycle. Um, it has uh, incredible like movement just naturally with 4 move. When you get it to a tank, it gets to 5 move. Um,
It it represents a significant power spike because if you look at a cab is 34. The land ship jumping all the way up to 90 means it almost one shots the previous unit.
yeah.
There's not another unit upgrade in the game that has that sort of increase.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. Okay, so let's talk about kind of what's the dream situation for a land ship.
Land ships really, really want to be on roads.
Yep.
Uh, the ability to attack and then move back doesn't do anything if you get stuck and you run out of movement. So they need to be on roads, and they also really want to be flanking. If you can see this infantry on the line
Yep.
that I've got, this is a really vulnerable infantry because there could easily be 4 land ships surrounding it, and they could have a massive combat bonus, and they could just isolate and kill that unit.
So let's, for the sake of discussion, let me move this land ship in. So now this is gonna get quadruple flanked, which real I don't think that is like reasonable, but just I guess for the sake of demonstration, this land ship has no bonuses because it's got drill and not shock, and it's got charge. So this is like as vanilla as it gets. But with quadruple flanking, we're hitting for 96.
What?
Yeah, we're hitting for 96. We still lose to the infantry because you have ambush and you have the 40% bonus. But it doesn't matter because this unit cycles, like we've been saying. So if you have an overextended infantry here, it doesn't matter if I'm trading like down. I'm getting plus 40%. Just hold on. Actually, am I even getting the flanking? Hold on.
You're not. You.
No, I'm not. So now I'm actually hitting at 114.
Yeah, that sounds right. So
Yeah.
it's a 60 strength unit. You get another 30 for being
Flanking.
a landship, another 6 for being elite forces, which you've already taken, and then the flanking adds on top of that.
Yeah. So it's ridiculous. You can kind of see if these are on roads, this infantry is going to be dying very, very. It'll instantly get popped, even as an infantry, even fortified, right? But I guess like let's talk about why infantry are so bad at defending landships generally.
So an infantry, first of all, is expensive. An infantry costs the same amount of hammers as a real tank, and that also means it's expensive to upgrade into. And the infantry can never hit back. So are you hovering the unit, Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So does this unfortify it?
It does. So now, unfortified, I'm attacking positively. You were at 120. Now you're at 110. You're at 100, and I am now at 114. I'm still at my 114.
So the infantry really, really, really needs to be fortified to get that big combat bonus. But if it just stands there and gets hit, it's gonna die.
Yep.
So when you're on defense, you're trying to swap the infantry, but you also want them fortified, and they're not fighting at that good value.
Yep. You constantly the best way to use an infantry, in my opinion, is you use it as a meat shield. It's fortified. It starts the turn fortified. That's the most important thing. It starts the turn fortified. That way it gets the 40%, right? Then, because right now we're only at 20, but if we start the next turn, we'll be at 40. Then this takes a ton of damage from me slamming it. It swaps to another infantry. That infantry takes a lot of damage. And then, let's say I'm out of gas. I'm waiting for the next turn. You swap to another infantry that's full health, and then it's going to start the turn fortified. So you're going to be plus 40%. You're going to be exactly where you just were. That way, you can heal the one that was in the middle, and you can heal the other one. So the problem is you're constantly going to be running out of units if you do that, right? Because this is why infantry are so it's really obnoxious to kill them because they hold tiles really well. But as soon as they're off the tile or as soon as they're unfortified, it's really, really hard to take the tile back or just hold any subsequent tiles unless you form a new line, if that makes sense. Landships are exceptionally good at pushing up and then pillaging forts, and then pushing up again, and then pillaging that fort, and slowly creeping their way in until you're suffocated. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, so the infantry, all it can do for you is buy you time.
Yep.
Infantry are never going to totally save you. Infantry are going to stand there, and they're going to take as many hits as they can. You can see the infantry really wants to have the mobility of the roads, that you can do the swaps, like Ryan was saying. It's only 2 movement. So it can't really swap off of roads the way a landship can.
Yeah. Yep.
And these guys are also really vulnerable to citadels because if Ryan dropped a citadel and took my roads, the infantry would no longer be able to use it, and it would get stuck and isolated and killed.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that point you made is really important. Where it's so common you get infantry get stuck or. You know, you pillage the road with a landship, and then that infantry is just they can't move, right? At least the landship has the 4 move; it can cross like whatever, like hills and stuff. Infantry are just dead. So when you're defending with infantry, the most important thing is just having a ton of forts and a ton of roads, and it's going to be obnoxious for them to get through, and they eventually will. That's the most important thing, unless you have some other alternative plan, or you're just out simming the shit out of them, but like that's not kind of what's likely happening. you need to be biding your time for something, whether that's battleships to shoot them down, whether that's bombers, whether that's real bombers. You know what I mean? Like whether it's nukes, there needs to be something at the end of the tunnel that you're holding out for, or maybe it's space, or maybe it's tourism bombs, or whatever it is, right? So that's the most important thing. So I think landship is a very thing. Let's talk quickly about kind of the difference between a landship and a tank. I think we were talking about this before we started this, but I think a lot of people overblow the impact or the difference between the two. I like to think that it's not that big of a gap, but maybe we can talk about kind of how when your combat strength increases, whether it be with modern armors or anything, the promos also subsequently increase exponentially. Same with, or multiplicatively. Or same with, modifiers like Clausewitz or anything else. Do you want to touch on that at all? So if we have our exact same situation into this infantry, we're dealing, we're trading evenly actually, because this infantry has ambush, it also has flanking, it's fortified, right? But if I move my tank in, we're trading about 5 damage better.
Yeah, so the tank, if you look at the cav to landship upgrade, think about that like a 34 to a 90. That's massive. That's a triple in strength. A landship to a tank is like a 90 to a 105. It's very marginal.
Yep. That being said, tanks are pretty cheap relative, I would say. Like, as in, like, the difference between tanks and landships is so insignificant in terms of cost. Usually, even without Pentagon, you can upgrade them and just kind of, I don't know, you'll have like a ton of extra gold left over, because you could probably upgrade all of your landships with like under 1,000 gold, which is just not the case for any other unit in the game that late. But it kind of just goes to show like kind of how insignificant a tank really is compared to a landship. Okay, so I think that's good for tanks and landships. What do you want to touch on next?
I want to talk about anti-tank rifles.
Okay.
I think,
yeah.
So the anti-tank rifle, name suggests it's really for fighting tanks. Landship has a plus 50% bonus versus land units. An anti-tank rifle has a plus 200% bonus versus tank class units. So an anti-tank rifle, which is 30 base strength, you can think about it as being 90 base strength versus a landship. The problem is, with the anti-tank rifle, it's vulnerable to literally everything else.
Literally. This thing dies to bombers. So, right now, maybe I'll show my screen so you can kind of see what I'm showing. But if we look at this anti-tank rifle, right?
Mm-hmm.
This trades pretty well into this landship, right? Minus 200%. And importantly, a lot of people fuck up the promos. So I think I'm gonna tangent a little bit here. But if we look at your landship here, right? My anti-tank rifle is going to deal about 30 damage because it's got double cover. And this is, in both of our opinions, double cover is what you should always be taking on anti-tank rifles, unless, you're always going to be on hills or something like that. But for the most part, always going to be taking double cover. And this is why. So we already have a 200%. And we're going to be dealing about even damage to this without any flanking, without anything, right? If we go to here, this is double ambush. This is dealing 35. I was surprised that this is so low. Like, I knew it was low, but this is fucking stupid. Like, what? This is so shit.
I'm surprised it's that high. I'm completely
Right, really? You're surprised the difference is that high?
Because Civ combat is proportional.
Yeah.
Right? So the I guess it's because it's double ambush, you're plus 66%, but it's over 200%. It's the difference proportionally between like 1.26 versus sorry, between 3.6 and just 3.
Yeah.
It's really not that much.
Yeah. So we're dealing a difference of 5 extra damage. I mean, but the key to all of this. Okay, so you took proper promos on your anti-tank rifle.
Yeah,
Actually,
I have some. I have one lying around here, which is
yeah, I see it.
what's the
It's on
challenge?
the. It's this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I go to just a bomber, it's triple promoted, so it's just so dead. Like you can't.
That's no fort too. Oh, there's one by Newsy, which is bad promoted also, and
Which one? This one?
south of Newsy on the forest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's just.
This is the other thing that makes the anti-tank rifle very painful. The fort bonus is only modifying its base strength, which
Yep.
is
So
pretty low.
and I think that's the key to as we get into later and later game scaling stuff, right? Where because the if we just look at like in general, I mean we're mostly focusing on like this kind of era right here, like modern and atomic. But as long as we get further and further in, this is why the game has to end, right? We look at the combat strength of modern armor, we're at 100. We look at a stealth, we're at 85. You look at GDR, we're at 240, right? The higher the base strength, the more important the correct promos are, the more important where your standing is, what tile you're on. So I think one of the main things, and we see this all the time with inexperienced players who are maybe focusing on the war and they're not, or they're focusing on their sim because it's really late. They're in a war. They've been in the war for like 3 hours at this point, right? And they constantly are just putting, you know, infantry unfortified on an oasis tile or something like that, right? Like we see this all the time. Like the amount of units that are just left there to die is ridiculous. And we see it all the time, and it's 100% the difference between someone very, very strong at war and someone very weak at war. It's just how many units you're giving away for free. But importantly, if we slow the game down, right, and maybe we lose a unit, but we make sure instead of counterattacking, we're just focused on, okay, I need to protect, if I'm Ashwin here, I need to protect these 2 tiles, right? That way I can't take Newsy. Okay, make sure I have the right units here. Make sure that this whatever unit is standing on this tile has double cover and has hill promo, right? If I put a double flat promo on this tile in a fort, like it's substantially worse because the combat strength is getting proportionally higher and higher and higher. So making sure that we're like slowing the game down, we're taking our time, we're not throwing away units can 100% be the difference between losing cities or winning the war in general. And it's just because, like, for instance, if we look earlier in the game, everyone, if the play Civ, is going to fight crossbows. We're dealing with an 18 strength range combat with 13 melee strength. Does it really matter if you're putting a crossbow in front of a city compared to a sword? No. Or a pike? Not really. It's a difference of 3. You know, but does it matter if we're putting you know, an infantry versus an anti-tank rifle? Yes, 100%, because we're dealing with a 30 base strength that's effectively fighting tanks at, you know, like what is it, like 90? Yeah, about 90 base. But the problem is, it's fighting everything else at 30. So these kinds of modifiers are great, but it depends what you're fighting. So that's why landships are so good, because everything's a land unit, but not many things are armor units. So you kind of have to balance it, especially the second most common unit, which is a bomber. And maybe we want.
Before we move on, I want to put
Yeah.
one more thing. So take a landship, and I want you to hover the fort difference between
Yeah.
the infantries in forts versus anti-tanks in forts. So, yeah, the infantry, which is not in a fort, fights at 107. It's good versus an infantry in a fort. at 133. That's a massive difference. And it's coming from that 40% fortification bonus plus the 50% terrain modifier.
So
So the
this has the
50%.
20. Unfortify that real quick
Let's
on the
unfortify
line.
that. Yeah.
So now we're fighting at 93. So just pressing F here is giving you how much? It's giving you 14 combat strength. Like, it's just giving you straight 14 combat strength just because you pressed F. And
If
then
you consider tank rifle.
what?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and then if you're in a 4, it's even more. And then etc. Okay, so anti-tank rifle.
So the anti-tank rifle has the lower base strength, so the difference between fortification and unfortification is a lot less.
Yeah.
And also the difference between being in a fort and not being in a fort is a lot less. So you've got, 96 versus.
No, I mean that's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean we're taking pretty much no difference damage, right? Slamming these, which is pretty significant. Okay, so let's talk about, and I think this is an important point. Until we get radar, right, which is a huge turning point in the current Civ meta, this is probably the most important tech for late game in general. That's a hot take, but I think it's probably the most important tech.
That's not a hot take.
Okay,
I think
well,
everyone agrees with that.
maybe okay. We're fairly partial, but if we look at what a Great War Bomber is, it's not a carry unit, if that makes sense. It's more of a complementary unit, and by that I mean there are certainly straight bomber plays, and there's certainly like opportunities you have to just like blow someone up with bombers. But for the most part, it's the unit that helps the landship get what it needs to get done. Also importantly, it's the best scaling unit in the game because you choose when it dies. It's super safe, and the promotions on it are so incredibly important. Maybe let's take a step back and let's talk about like landship promotions. I think it's fairly intuitive. It's like, what kind of land are you fighting, right? This is mostly flat, I would say. So if I'm pushing into Ashwin here, obviously every single one of these tiles is going to be eroded. Every single one of them is going to be eroded. And, I'm going to be taking all flat promotions. And because I see, maybe, let's say, hypothetically, Ashwin loves going a tourism, so maybe he's playing tourism, right?
That's me.
Yeah, that's you, the tourism player. Yeah. So let's say Ashwin's playing tourism and he's trying to win tourism. So he's gonna have a lot of infantry and maybe marines and whatever. There's no reason for me to take ambush here. But if I'm fighting another autocracy player, or I'm fighting someone who is order and using Kremlin bonus and went railroad first for Kremlin, whatever, I might need ambush because they're going to be fighting with the same unit class. And having ambush versus not having ambush is the biggest gap in promo that you could have in the entire game. Rather than like taking, even if you take the wrong, terrain type, you can kind of work around that by making sure those units are on those tiles and whatnot. But fighting ambush versus not fighting ambush can 100% be the difference if you win or lose. And I think a lot of new players especially don't realize this promo exists and they don't take it. But I'm literally in a call right now with the biggest ambush enthusiast in the world. So do you want to touch on that?
I want to point out a few things here. The first is that a terrain promo is only 15%.
Yeah.
And when you're setting that up, it's really good. But an ambush promo is 33%. You can get both of them, and you're consistently, a lot of these late games, you're slamming land ships. At some point, everybody who's still alive has land ships.
Yeah.
And then it's a very serious promo. The 33% is a lot bigger than 66% than the 15%. The other thing is that the base game, the ambush promo works totally differently. There's a anti-cav promo and there's an anti-tank promo. And I've seen people get confused thinking, oh, I shouldn't be taking ambush because I'm fighting land ships, but ambush is for cavs. That's just not correct. The two promos have been merged. Things which are good at fighting cavs in Lek are also good at fighting land ships.
Yep. This is why um, you can build Lancers. The Lancers will retain their promos as they get upgraded, and it actually
They
works.
don't. That was in an old patch.
What?
Now they have like a yeah, pull up a Lancer. A Lancer has a sort of being a Lancer bonus. Upgraded Lancers into anti-tank rifles aren't. They don't come with ambush promo. Yeah. So it's got that bonus versus mounted 33. That's not ambush.
Oh,
So
really?
an eight. Yep.
Well, it still retained keep move after attacking, though.
Yeah, yeah, it does retain that, but it doesn't retain the 33.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting.
I think
Oh.
Sura actually got stuffed by some anti-tank rifles. He decided, I'm done with this. And that changed.
um,
Um,
actually, I think it would be kind of fun. Just this is an arty, and arty are probably one of the. It's the most era-defining unit in the whole game. Once you have arty, the game changes, fundamentally. I think that's kind of like a fact. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but
no, I completely agree.
yeah. But they're known, at least post-industrial, they're known to not do that much damage to units. The only exception in the entire game, the only exception, is to an anti-tank rifle. Literally, this thing, it deals a third of its fucking damage.
Right. Like, to all the kids out there, do not put your trust in the anti-tank rifle.
Yeah.
It will let you down.
It will
This
let
is
you
properly promoted, too.
Yeah. It's so sad, man. It's just so sad. I mean, and then you just look at a bomber and you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah. So it's just, yeah. Arty are mostly known for taking cities. They can blow up cavs. They can blow up muskets pretty well, but they can't blow up an infantry. They can't really. Actually, this one can die. But like, this is properly fortified, and we're not breaking through this. So yeah.
Yes. So there's a little bit of a triangle here, which is good. There's land ships, which move in, take tiles. They kill most gunpowder units very well. They threaten cities, but they're not super great versus things like anti-tank rifles, anti-tank guns.
Yep.
Then you've got your ranged units on push. Ranged units attack cities very well. They attack things like anti-tank rifles very well, but you can't have them in the front line because they'll instantly die to something like a land ship. And then you've got your gunpowder units, which, don't get pinged too badly by ranged, but die pretty hard to tank.
Yep. And that's just because of the high combat strength, but low mobility. So it is a good balance that I think exists in the game. But let's talk about the thing that breaks the balance, that breaks the fucking triangle, and completely plays by its own rules. And also has to be the best end game in the game. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about bombers. There's two main bomber types. There's triple promo bombardment. And just if anyone's curious how we are getting so many promotions, we're autocracy here with Total War, which gives us 15 plus 15 15 experience, and then on top of that we have armories, barracks, and military academies. So with that, we're gonna start each unit is gonna start with 60, and then we're gonna go from there. Additionally, something very important with autocracy and honor, discipline gives 50% more experience from combat. Okay, and if we pair that with Total War, I mean, if we pair that with Total War and Iron Fist, we can farm.
Iron Fist also gives 50%.
Yeah, Iron Fist also gives 50%. We can farm the best promotion in the entire game, which is air repair, very, very quickly. And that's significant because we go from having to heal our bombers occasionally to never having to heal our bombers. And they fire repeatedly as if they're arties without punishment. Except for enemy triplanes. But yeah, do you want to talk about this for a little bit?
So bombers are a bit weird because they're ranged units, so they actually require their health to deal damage. A bomber which is red will deal very little damage. A bomber which is green is going to deal the most damage. So bombers want to stay at high health. When they get air repair, they're in a city. An air repair order bomber, say, is going to heal 25 HP per turn. With Autocracy Elite Forces, it's healing 35 HP per turn. So it's going to fire every turn with the consistent top amount of damage.
And not just that. We can add even more when we buy something like, let's just buy a Marine, and we give it Medic. So now we're healing five additional, and then another 5 additional. So we go from healing, what was it before? You said 45 or 35?
It's 35 for you because you have elite forces.
Yeah, 35 for me because I have elite forces. When I put this Marine adjacent to the city, I'm going to be healing 45 per turn every single turn that I fire a bomber. So let's talk about how bomber. So there, like I said, there's 2 main bomb upgrade paths. There's the triple bombardment, which you're going to be taking 99% of the time. This is extremely efficient. Or you take triple naval. This is extremely efficient because the goal is to get to air repair fast. It's not to, win the war like as efficiently as possible. It's mostly just I need these units later in the game. I'm using the best unit in the game once I get past radar. And then I'm also just, simultaneously killing them. So I'm doing all 3 things at the same time. The alternative is if you're in a situation where Great War Bombers only have 7 range. So right here, I can't hit these backline units. Let's say I really wanted to kill this airship. If I just don't have the range for it. But a range bomber gives you 2 extra operational range. So now I can attack 9 tiles out. Now I can easily kill this airship, or I can easily start pinging down the city. Right? It depends on the land. It depends what type of attack you're doing. But this is something you really have to think about when you're attacking. So just keep that in mind. Normal bombers have 7. Range bombers have 9. We're going to make a whole video on just bomber play specifically and how it kind of works together because it's very deep. It's very complicated. And it's extremely punishing if you don't understand the mechanics. Actually, think about it. Is there anything else in the game where if you don't understand this thing, you will just get completely obliterated?
There's some sim stuff like scientist generation or something.
Yeah, I guess. But I just meant in war.
No, there's really nothing.
Yeah, no one is going to have fun bombing into triplanes and not knowing why their bombers are getting one shot. And it happens all the time. So, yeah.
Another thing I want to talk about here is bombers, because of the way they're big range, they get to ignore a lot of the terrain things that land ships and infantry care a lot about. The bomber can reach out and snipe a general very easily. The bomber can pick off a wounded unit. So the utility of it, even as a Great War Bomber, is super high.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Bombers also allow activating charge if you took the promotion, which, let's say you're not fighting against other land ships. Charge is usually the best option because it gives you plus 33%. So just think about that. The reason charge is good is because it gives plus 33%. Well, ambush gives 66. Right? So just a testament to how good ambush is. Anyway, so bombers allow you to activate charge if you don't have arties in range. They allow you to pick off cities. They allow you to, like you said, finish off units, which is extremely important to winning a longer-term war, is killing those units so they don't heal back up. Yeah.
There's an added level of synergy there because the bomber takes damage based on the health of the unit it's attacking. So when a bomber picks off a wounded unit, it stays very close to full health, and then the next unit can do it again.
And it's farming experience at the same time. No other unit in the game, maybe battleships, but no really other unit in the game actually cares that much about the promotions that they're farming. Actually, I guess maybe a camel archer or something does. But for the most part, they're just nice to have, right? It's nice to have, another promotion, or it's nice to have march on my land ships. It's rare that.
Talk about this. Yeah.
You go.
Yeah. So this is one of my personal big pet peeves is march on land ships takes so much work to get, and it doesn't yield you that much because land ships have a really bad habit of dying.
Yep.
Land ships are squishy units. They push in and they deal damage and they do it efficiently, but they can get kicked off tiles really well. And a March land ship is walking around with a triple drill promo or a triple open terrain promo, which, as we've talked about, doesn't give that much. An air repair bomber comes with 3 tiers of bombardment, which is the best promo in the game, and it heals inside of a city for 45 HP per turn versus like a March lane ship, which heals at best 20 per turn in enemy territory.
Yep.
So the bomber promo is just so by far and above, like Ryan was saying, better than any other group.
Also, it's 33%.
Yep.
For no reason.
We were just talking about how good the
ambush
promo was. Yeah.
Oh, so you mean to say every single thing I'm going to be shooting, I get this promo against? Oh, okay. That's fair. That's almost as bad as this base land ship bonus. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, bombers are oppressive. Okay, so let's move on to how to counter bombers. What beats bombers?
So the anti-bomber line is the fighter. So in modern era, we have the triplane, and you can see the icon on Ryan's screen below. There's a little red circle. That's the intercept button. So when his plane is on intercept, when he clicks that button, that triplane, every time someone tries to bomb into the area, the triplane will intercept it and deal damage to it. I feel really bad now that I didn't build any bombers because I didn't have oil.
I can just demonstrate.
Yeah, so I've got no intercepts on right now.
Okay. So what do you
Yeah.
What do you want me to bomb?
Let me move an AA away. Let's bomb this wine infantry. There's no intercepts there.
You lied. What?
No, actually. Oh my god. I had them on intercept.
Okay,
right.
turn them off. Okay,
Yeah.
turn it off.
Turn it off. Shut it down. Shut it down.
Okay, hold on. Turn off intercept.
Okay. They're definitely.
Are they off?
Let me double check. Yep, they're off.
Okay.
There's no AA range.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
There we go. There we go.
The opposite, really.
But honestly, this is good. Okay, this is good. So these two have the same amount of damage promos, right? One has range. The other one just didn't have an extra promo. I think this point is very important that you were making, Ashwin, where in Civ, your units do less damage the lower health they are, with the one exception being Japan. So if that's the case, let's check, just like for demonstration purposes, just how much less damage these are actually doing. So this is about, this is like 3/4 HP. You know, it's pretty healthy. I think most people would bomb with it again. So we're dealing to the same wine infantry, because the infantry took more damage than we did. It's going to be, you know, we're hitting at 105.6. They're hitting us back at 84. Okay. And I think that's pretty standard, right? Like this looks about right. If we
Bomber tooltip is pretty broken, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you know, if we're looking at to bomber and whatever, this looks pretty good. I think if we were full HP, maybe we'd be hitting at like 110, something like that, right? I can't check.
So this is just they're gonna do the same. The tooltip is gonna demonstrate the same because they have the same strength, right? They're both 105.6.
Oh fuck, you're right.
The tooltip's just broken. And this is something that's hard to learn. But
yeah.
you do have to learn.
Maybe let's let's end the turn, and then we'll just demonstrate how little damage it does. So unfortify the thing so it doesn't heal.
The wine?
Yeah.
No, it'll still heal because it hasn't taken an action.
Here.
You want me to just swap it?
Yeah. No, just move it up and then back. Yeah. Okay. So now let's end the turn. Cool. Now. Fuck, how are we gonna do this?
What are you exactly?
I want to just show like how little damage this thing's gonna do compared to the other one. So if we shoot here, it says we're going to be dealing 28, but realistically we are going to be dealing 6. And it died. Did you have intercept on, you bastard?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
As soon as I
okay, okay. All right. So, and then if we compare that to this, 9 to 32. Right? Insanely different, right? And this is something we see a lot where, you know, and it's to no one's fault, right? It's just kind of a product of this game. But wars go on for a really long time. And every time you're doing a war and it's going on for a while, you're going to, you know, you might get a little restless, or you just like, you know, you're like, I need to kill this unit. I just need to kill this unit. And then you're shooting with like red health bombers and you're like wondering why you're doing 2. Just like hitting them for 2 and hitting them for 6 and whatever. And it's just because you're not paying attention to the HP bar on the left or on the right. So, yeah. Do you want to add something to that?
To me, bombers are a precious resource. The longer they stay alive, the more promos they get to have, the more you're going to be relevant late game if you make your way out of this fight. It's never worth it, in my opinion, to, you know, suicide bombers, to throw bombers in to obtain some short-term goal. Because
do you hear that, Miota?
I was not the person to mention Miota. But the long-term goal is to get to air repair.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I think this is a good coverage on bombers. Let's talk about kind of like you said, like triplanes. The way you counter bombers, like Ashwin mentioned, is triplanes. Triplanes provide incredible coverage. The problem is when you're fighting an autocracy player, there's a promotion called dogfighting. And why don't you move the AA away and then
and so then let's hide the AA and I'll put one triplane up.
Do you have intercept promo?
I took one with intercept, one with dogfighting, but it doesn't matter on defense.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Put on intercept, and then I'll just kind of demonstrate kind of what sweeping can do with you have dogfighting. So the first thing is, I can see it in my range, so I can know where it can sweep. So I'm gonna just sweep here, and we'll see how much damage we deal. So I took 14, and Ashwin took 60. I don't even have Clausewitz yet. So
like 2 sweeps of that kind, and that triplane's gonna die.
It's the problem with triplanes is it's very much it's almost like a band-aid, and this is why I laugh when people take sortie. It's just sortie defenders really confuse me, but essentially you're just kind of asking for all your triplanes to just instantly pop. And this is the utility of just like lots of promos and high combat modifiers. The other thing that we need to cover is AA. AA, in my opinion, are probably the most. They're actually like scarier than triplanes a lot of times because you can't really remove them as easy if you don't have the land ships. Because the main way to take out AA, can you move it in? And I'll just kind of demonstrate, like just blowing one up. So if Ashwin, let's say Ashwin doesn't have a, you don't have a triplane on, right?
No, there's no triplane.
All right. So if I just bomb this, I just took 56. I dealt 29 just because of this AA. The AA intercepted my bomber. And the only real way to deal with it is by slamming it with land ships or with tanks or whatever else. But you know, it's hard to. It's like pushing off an infantry almost. Of course, it has less combat strength, substantially less, 20 less. But it's something that the problem with AA is they're very, very expensive, right? They're just substantially more expensive than other unit. They're like the same cost of units. Like it's like building infantry. You know, it's like the same cost. You're just getting 20 less combat strength. And then the other difficulty is a lot of times in these wars, specific tiles are very important. AA give range within 2 tiles, right? Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah, within like a radius of 2.
Mhm. So the wine infantry isn't being covered by the anti-air gun,
But
but
this
the
this one
port
would be.
infantry and the anti-tank
Yeah.
rifle are both covered by the AA gun.
So you need a lot of AA to defend all of your units, which means you're holding up a lot of tiles, which allows them to get picked off by land ships. So I think a lot of people criticize Civ for its war gameplay and whatnot. I genuinely believe Civ has some of the best war mechanics. It's very, very well balanced. And because in Lek, we're constantly battling each other to push the game to its limits, we're able to identify, okay, this is currently really strong. We should like take a look at that and maybe like adjust accordingly. Or, bomber meta right now is really oppressive. We'll probably wink see a nerf soon. Wink. And these are kind of things that because the mod is, you know,
It's a living mod.
it's a living mod. Like because the lead dev is like very very close with a lot of the players, and everyone has a say in what needs to change. A lot of things like this can adapt, and the game can change. So I think for that reason, Civ actually, in terms of like as a war game, is genuinely very compelling. Also for fun, look at this anti-tank rifle try to slam an infantry.
Oh god.
um,
Oh, I wanna point out here. There's another kind of unit triangle here. There's the bombers, which want to attack, the anti-aircraft guns, which beat the bombers, and the tanks, which beat the anti-aircraft guns.
yep.
So you can see also I've promoted sort of just on habit. My anti-aircraft gun is promoted with the anti-tank promo.
Yep.
Because the thing I'm scared of is that Ryan's gonna slam this with a tank. Is it gonna do well if he slams it with a tank? No, but it'll do better with the
With the promo.
anti-tank promo.
In war especially in these late game wars, because as you'll see in any good late game war that's not a pure landship blitz, it's very much about the whole army and not one unit type. The only exception is Chile, but in every other Civ, you will likely be building and fielding every single type of unit class and trying to use them as best you can. There's a couple exceptions, such as mobile SAMs, which are kind of, jack of all trade types units. But for the most part, each unit class is very, very useful in specific situations. So covering your weaknesses because someone is going to be building a unit to counter you is often the best approach. And like Ashwin said, he's taking ambush on his anti-aircraft because when I try to bomb into it, I'm really like it. I mean, you can look at this, like it's just not very good, and that's because anti-aircrafts have a promotion very similar to that of anti-tank rifles, except the difference is 50 combat strength. I know it comes at different time, but still. But bonus versus aircraft and helicopter is 150. So we're getting almost the same promo that an anti-tank rifle is getting, but we're getting against helicopters and bombers, which and having higher combat strength. So the unit is extremely, extremely strong. And then this gets even better once we get rocketry and we get mobile SAMs and you get 3 movement and it's 65 combat strength, and it's all great. Do you want to add anything before I kind of break the game?
Just general philosophy on promos is, first of all, base strength is king. Base strength is the thing that's getting modified. So every time you got a higher base strength, you're much happier, and you don't want to stack too many rewards unless you're really, really, really confident you're only going to fight that thing. So, and unless your opponent's brain dead, you're probably not just going to fight one thing.
Yep. Like if you only have land ships and you're not building any bombers, you will lose to anti-tank rifles. You will lose to this dog shit unit. And it's just how it is, because the unit's cheaper and it counters it, and it's just not going to work. So, okay, let's break the game. Why is autocracy good?
We were actually just talking about this before we started. There's a few things make autocracy really good. Elite forces is extra healing. That's absolutely crazy. Autocracy has access to more strategic resources than other ideology trees because it has third alternative. Autocracy has total war, which is a production bonus. That's 25% production. That's a lot. And it gives auto access to third tier promos. And we've seen how impactful third tier promos are. But the thing everybody's really gunning for, the thing.
Also, the happy is just crazy.
Yeah,
But
the happy is really, really important. But the thing that makes people concede, the thing that when people say, oh, he has auto 6 and then the game's over, is Clousy.
yeah. What do you want to showcase? I don't know. Like
I don't want my units to die. I've grown attached to
okay,
them.
that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Let's just.
Yeah, let's see it. So, stacking combat bonuses again is not as impactful as you might think. So looking at these Clousy bonuses, right? Yeah, hover some unit. So this bomber is getting 100% versus domain already, and 10% from elite forces. So this Clausewitz bonus is only adding 15 strength, give or take.
Only.
Yeah. Okay. it's a really big amount. It's like Ryan's bomber has picked up somewhere between double and triple flanking.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a perfect point to make.
Yeah.
And it's that this is obviously a very good promo, but if you're bad at war, it will never save you. The way you use Clousy and the way you watch good players use Clousy that makes it strong is you combine everything. So you are flanking everything. And now we're attacking this thing. Actually,
Oh god.
Like,
that's a lot of damage.
We could just move up and then start attacking this thing too. So instead of going from what we were before, now we just gained another 10%, and then I can move this in and gain another 10%. Pair that with Clausewitz. This is how a lot, like Ashwood said, Clausewitz is very, 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 very strong. It's what makes people concede. It's what makes the game feel imbalanced. It's why your units get one shot when you're not properly prepared, and it's why you can't kill anything of your opponents ever. That being said, it's not something that just instantly will end the game if the opponent is better than you. Because even with Clausewitz, it doesn't fix your lack of war experience. And that's the main thing I want people to take away from this, is that in late game, even if the opponent has everything, you can still, and we see this all the time, and it's like such a perfect like case study for like why Civ is such a like high skill game. We watch people who have no fucking business defending certain attacks, but they conceptually understand the game better than others. They are clearly like just operating at a different level in terms of understanding where units need to stand, understanding what promos those units have, understanding, okay, like how do I avoid flanking, whatever. Even with Clausewitz, you will still not be able to kill them. So Clausewitz makes the game like substantially easier, right? It makes Ashwin just not be able to attack me back for the most part. But if I overextend my unit, like here or whatever, and I try to slam it, Ashwin can just one shot, like instantly pop this tank, right? So I just want. Do you want to add anything to that? I think a lot of people, a lot of people feel like, and I mean, I'm not gonna say they're wrong. Where it's like, yeah, if you fight against someone who's really good and they have Clausewitz, there is nothing you can do. But that's often not the case.
I think of auto like a big toolbox, and all the tools are supposed to make one specific thing. And so a really good player playing autocracy is going to find, what do I need to make this push work, and auto is going to provide the tools for them.
Yeah.
When you're defending, you don't have that big toolbox. You have some defender advantages. You've got things like roads. You've got forts, right? and you're really just praying that this takes too long, that at some point, somebody else is going to make it out.
Yeah, no, well said. One last thing, because we're coming up on an hour here, but one
Oh my god.
last, yeah, no, this happens to me all the time. One last thing I'll say, and I want you to talk about this, is anti-tank guns. Um, Without a doubt, in my opinion, the most underrated unit in the entire game, for this era at least. Uh, Disgustingly underbuilt. The reason why it's so good is because compared to its counterpart, which has, as we mentioned, 30 combat strength, but operates against tanks as if it has 90, this has 50. So that, triple modifier, we're talking about the 200% modifier, is giving us a difference of 60 effective combat strength, which is, if we think back to the landship stuff, just as big as the landship gap. Obviously, it's only against landships, but still.
The thing that anti-tank rifles are doing to landships, that's what anti-tank guns are doing to modern armors. We're not talking about what they do to tanks, where they're going even with modern armors. It's a huge spike.
Yep.
So, yeah, so overarching, I think this is, yeah, overarching things that I think are important. There's a lot of unit triangles that show up here. If you don't have the right counter unit, you're going to trade for very bad value, and your push is probably not going to be successful, or your defense is probably not going to be successful. So we saw the anti-tank rifle, bomber, tank triangle. We saw the anti-aircraft gun, bomber, tank triangle, which goes the other way. If you want to appropriately promote your units based on what they're supposed to be fighting and what your opponent's going to push them with. And when you're in every stage of the game, no matter where you are, you really need enough roads. Those are the big things I want to talk about.
Some people might be wondering, why didn't you guys talk about helicopters? Do you want to talk about that or no? It's not even worth it.
I
mean, we're in atomic, so it's not really the scope of this video, but
yeah, just quick aside on helicopters. Helicopters are designed to do exactly one thing, which is hunt down and kill tanks. They're mobile in enemy territory, they ignore zone of control, but they die to basically everything. Anti-aircraft guns and mobile SAMs have an anti-helicopter bonus. Fighters have an anti-helicopter bonus. Even bombers, their bomber anti-land bonus works on helicopters. Their mobile units in enemy territory, which die to things which are mobile in enemy territory, and they're not very mobile in your own territory because they can't use your roads. So I'm a helicopter hater. I think
there's one exception.
Of course, the one.
But that doesn't count. That doesn't count. So, but anyway, cool. Yeah, I think that's kind of all we wanted to cover. I think late game war is in my opinion, it's the most fun to watch. Not only because of the novelty that you rarely get there, but for me, it's like you really get to see a lot of skill expression, and it's not as much of like, I'm just gonna keep building crossbows and you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more thought that goes into every single unit click, that goes into where units are standing, that goes into everything. And frankly, the closest war to this, and why I like it, the other type of war so much, is actually classical. Classical war is very similar in the sense that most classical wars, you need all unit types to effectively make it work. Similar case for this, because unlike other war types, there's no eras where they're defined by one unit, right? If you think of medieval, we're in crossbow land. If we go to Renaissance and industrial, we're in cav arty land. After that, we're in bomber land, we're in landship land, and those two are the obviously main aggressive attacking types, but there's a lot of different defensive measures that you can take, and it's very much like more than a rock paper scissors based on if the opponent's griefing or not, which is what we see with crossbows and arty. Um, like I said, classical is actually a great way to practice late game war, because the same concepts apply where you have really strong units like spearmen, but you have very versatile units like compos, and then more niche type units like chariots, but they all kind of can work together. And I think it's it. I don't know like what your opinions of late game war are, but I know most people like watching this kind of stuff because, like I said, it's one of those things where you can really test the true skill of a player like in war when it comes to this type of game.
Yeah, it's these like sort of, especially these modern to atomic wars, they come when a player has sort of gotten all their sim under them. They've made a huge amount of decisions throughout the game, and now all these tiny things are going to add up, right? Oh, did I take a certain ideology policy that's going to help me here? How much strategic research do I have? Do I have enough forts up? Do I have enough railroads up? Everything, every tiny little factor comes together. And Civ is such a complicated game that it's impossible to be perfect. So you get these people all striving to get as close to not wrong as possible, and
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep. So I think that's all we really want to talk about. So cool.